Wes Goldberg, cold open question of the day. Got to tell you, I texted you that I had a spicy cold open for you.
You did?
Not quite as the if we were on Hot Ones, this would be a little earlier in the show now, based on the fact that it has been discussed elsewhere today. So I'm stepping on something here, but I feel like we have to just talk about this because it's a way to talk about a important guy in the league, at least in terms of name value, and that's Zion Williamson. So last week there was news that came out that Zion has split ways with his agent.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting timing considering he already has a contract extension in theory. But it was, I think, I at least was reminded via the reporting about this that he can, the Pelicans can just say sayonara and waive him at the end of the year with no penalty to their cap sheet. And there's a lot of other markers he'd have to hit. This is amid him being out again with another injury. He's out with a hamstring. No idea when he's going to come back. So, Wes, I ask you this. You're David Griffin. You're the president of basketball operations of the New Orleans Pelicans. Could you see yourself at the end of this season getting to a place where you decide, hey, you know what, it's actually better for us if we walk away from the Zion Williamson business at the end of the season?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Why? It would be it would be a really tough pill to swallow, considering that New Orleans' ceiling is whatever Zion's ceiling is. But if they come to the conclusion that, hey, we're never going to hit that ceiling is just it's a false ceiling. It doesn't exist for us. He's never going to be healthy. What we have learned in this version of the CBA with the new cap aprons and everything that's going on is that losing a player for nothing is sometimes better than keeping a player or getting something for that player. Case in point, Paul George and what the Clippers did there. They didn't bother trading him. They didn't try to do a sign and trade where they could have done something with Golden State. Nope, they said, you know what? We'd rather just have the cap space. To us, that's more valuable, is that flexibility, because then we're not going to get penalized by a first or a second apron going forward and all the roster limitations that we inherit with all that stuff. And so New Orleans is an expensive roster. And they could say, look, we can let Zion Williamson walk after this. His contract is non-guaranteed after this season, so we can just cut him. And that saves us $39 million, $40 million against the cap, and then some for the next 3 years. And then they also have Brandon Ingram coming off the books. Mm-hmm. And so if they don't trade him before February's deadline for, salary, more long-term salary, then that's another $30+ million walking off the books. And all of a sudden, if you're the Pelicans, you've completely reset everything. And then you probably sell off CJ McCollum for, loose change that you found in the couch cushions and whatever else that you could do. And it's not to say that they're all of a sudden going to be able to reload or restock. That's the scary part of New Orleans, because free agents don't go there. And, they've got some issues with their draft picks here, but I do think that there's a world where David Griffin could say, you know what, this isn't working anymore. We need a chance to reset, and I don't know that we're going to have this chance again for a little while, and rather do it sooner than later. I could totally see a world in this new CBA that they can do that. What's crazy about it, Chris, is I don't think that this would have ever happened if not for the aprons. I would have said, there's no way. You just keep them on your books. You figure it out. The risk does not outweigh the reward. But now maybe it does.
I'm there. And if it was today, Wes, if I had to make the decision today, I think I would want out of the Zion business. We are so far away from David Griffin emotionally breaking down back when the Pelicans won the Zion lottery. We are in a world now where there is more track record than not of Zion being undependable as your franchise guy, unable to stay healthy, not physically, doesn't look the same, doesn't perform the same. You factor in the aprons. I think it might be in the best case for everyone if they just go their separate ways. I don't know what this would mean for Zion as a free agent next summer. Where does he go? How does he approach the next phase of his career? How do you find the right place? That's definitely, I think you'd want to go short-term deal for a good amount of money, but try to rehabilitate your value in the right ecosystem. I don't know where the right place for that is. Is it you get the mid-level from a contender and just go supernova for a year and figure it out? I don't know what that looks like, right? But this hasn't worked for him there. I don't think there's not any data anymore to think of him as a franchise guy. If you had said, Wes, I was thinking of, when I was prepping for this, I was thinking back to our episode last week where we did the top 20 guys. When Zion got drafted, if you had said, okay, 2024, go 2025 season, is there any world where Zion's not a top 20 guy consensus? And he's not even close to the conversation. Like, he's not even close. When he's healthy now, is just like, that guy doesn't exist to me. He is not a real thing. And if you're New Orleans and you already gave up 2 firsts for DeJounte and Dyson Daniels, who, by the way, in the ESPN poll this week is the favorite to win Most Improved Player of the Year, and I think rightfully should be a leading candidate for that award. Everything is telling you that like you might be already too far gone to salvage the Zion era, and it might just be better for the health of your franchise long term, not in the short term, to just say, hey, this didn't work. We have an out. Let's take the out. Let's reroute some things. Let's reset. Even if you re-sign Brandon Ingram for 2 years just to like exist, like
that would be the worst case scenario if you're New Orleans. If you're a New Orleans Pelicans fan, now we're building around Brandon Ingram.
But it wouldn't even be like building around Brandon Ingram. It's like that you're kind of in this like Chicago Bullsy energy.
Oh, good.
Where like no, I don't mean this is a good thing, but like
Okay.
the way to get somewhere better in 5 years. Like, you
Right.
already have DeJounte Murray on your books, and you have.
That's why I'd say just let them all go. Let them all go.
Yeah,
you know,
I
you
think
would
you
just
tried to,
say,
but you might not be able. But with the Aprons, you might not be able. You might not be able to. Is sort of the
well,
thing,
Brandon Ingram, you
know?
can let go. You just don't resign him.
Yeah.
And then with Zion, you're going to cut him. Yeah, and then you have DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, some of these other contracts, and you can work those guys off your books eventually. This is like.
And
Look,
they have guys I like. It's like, I love Trey Murphy. I absolutely love Herb Jones. Like, there's guys on this roster I still really like. It's sort of the conundrum here as well.
But the thing is, if you do that hard reset, then you commit to maybe trading those guys too. Maybe not commit, but you have to explore it at the very least.
Yeah. For a lot of value, and if you can get it.
Exactly. And so that's why if I had to bet, I'm going to bet that this doesn't happen because it's such a bold thing to just say, you know what? Let's pull the plug on the whole damn thing. Like all of it, and just completely reset. There's not a lot of general managers that could survive that, right? Like the number one job for a GM is what? Keep your job. That's the number one job for any general manager in the NBA. The second job is to build a winner. The first job is to keep your job. If you do this, if you're David Griffin, what are the odds that you get to see through the rest of this next version of the build?
I say this like with a bias towards David Griffin. Was the architect of the Cavs title roster in 2016. In my time covering the team day to day, was one of the kindest people I interacted with covering the team. Like a guy that knew who I was very respectful. Like, I like him as a person from every interaction I've had with him, limited as it is. He might get fired anyway. Like, this might be like this might be a new head of the front office on June 1st.
Well, now that's something different, isn't it? Right? If Griffin is let go, which I think would be unfair. At this point,
I
don't think he's deserved it. But if he
I
were hypothetically if he were let go,
a league that's thought of well, right?
Yeah, exactly. If he were to, for some reason, get let go, the new general manager can come in and clean house. I could totally see that. So a lot of moving parts here.
This just feels like such that there's a reset coming in some way for this team. Whether it's Zion or not, there's something here that I think is changing next year.
He's an interesting He's an interesting trade candidate too, Zion, because for any other team, he's essentially an expiring contract. So rather than let him walk,
$million.
Right. So rather than let him walk away for nothing, there is the potential there for another team to maybe get off of some kind of salary that they want to get off of, and then they're the ones that waive Zion.
What team has the best medical staff in the league? Do we know what team has considered the best medical staff? That's the team that should just trade for Zion.
It's a great question. I don't know that there is one that is
we don't know.
Way. Yeah.
I don't think any. Also, I say this lovingly to NBA front office personnel. I don't think the people Wes you and I would talk to as media members would actually be the best vetting of the teams with good medical staffs.
Mm.
It's their perception of who a good head trainer is probably slightly the definitions are probably a little bit different because they probably want their guys to be healthy but also able to play. Whereas the best guy for Zion might be the guy who keeps him really regimented and keeps him from his body combusting over and over again, which also just might be a reality of having Zion Williamson on your basketball team, is that his body's gonna break down every 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of that's out of control for these guys. Also, a lot of these guys have their own sort of staffs that they work out with too.
Which is this is complicated. Zion Williamson, 36.7 next year, and 39, 42, and 44 at age 24, and it feels like we're about to cross the Rubicon with him in his career. If we haven't already, I think we're crossing that point of no return of something next for him. Where him and Ben Simmons teaming up next year is the question of the all rehabilitation team next year is what I'm looking forward to. But on today's show, Thanksgiving edition of the Just Basketball Show, team we're each thankful for, a player we're thankful for, and a storyline that we are thankful for. It's coming up today on the Just Basketball Show, plus some talk about Thanksgiving food, because how could we not?
Oh, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan. Oh, LeBron James with no regard for human life.
What's up, everyone? Welcome in. I mean, we've been here for a bit, but continuing here on the Just Basketball Show, I'm Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. Just one episode for you this week, but if you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, review on your podcast platform of choice. Hit subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. Maybe there's a great game this week. I'll hop on and throw some extra reactions up there on YouTube. If you haven't already, check out our episodes from last week. Particularly, I loved our Cooper Flag episode where we had Zach Cohen come through, and we did a ranking of the top 20 players in the NBA. And Wes, I spent all weekend wondering why I was defending Joel Embiid so much, and should him lower. That was where my head spent most of this weekend. It was like that in Gladiator 2 was where my brain went over the weekend.
I was on the right side of history on that one. Safe to say.
Yeah, it's what a dumpster fire Philly is. All right, Wes, you're going to tell us first about our friends at BetMGM.
Yeah, if you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use the bonus code JustBasketball. You'll get up to $1,500 in a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
If you haven't already, check out our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses. It uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use the link below to make your purchase and support the Just Basketball Show. And you could also just wait till Friday. Use that link on Black Friday when I'm sure Homage is going to have some amazing deals. Or if you just want to get in on their starter collection, which is they have a ton of great NBA starter options in there. Go check those out now. Use the link below. All right, Wes, let's get into team we're thankful for. And before we do that, any other news you feel like you gotta reacting to right now? We're in that weird spot of the NBA calendar where we're just like waiting a little bit, but anything else percolating on your mind in the NBA world right now before we get into the Thanksgiving of it all?
Not really. I mean, Kristaps Porzingis sounds like he's coming back to the Boston Celtics tonight. We're recording this Monday before the game starts, so by the time most people are hearing this, we'll know how that went. Not much more of a reason to talk about it. So that's really it. I mean, it's Thanksgiving. It's around that time of year where you're almost 20 games in, and it's time for front offices. Like right after this Thanksgiving break, front offices are going to have meetings and start talking about like, what do we think about our team? What are our holes? What do we need to do? Is this our year? What's our ceiling? What's our outlook really like? This is the time where, teams across the league start evaluating themselves.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Two things I would just say caught my eye. Victor Wembanyama, after missing 3 games, utterly wrecked the Warriors in a comeback win, which Wemby is here. Also really enjoyed Fred VanVleet. I mean, not enjoy in the best way, but that was one of the angriest reactions to an ejection I've seen in some time. Got a $50,000 fine for it. The Houston Rockets, a very spunky, good basketball team that I am quite enjoying. Not going to be my pick for a team I'm thankful for, Wes, but a team that I am quite enjoying this year and the identity that they have built. So, Wes, you can start us off. Who's the team you're thankful for?
I'm thankful for the Golden State Warriors. They have been a breath of fresh air this season. It was a rough watch last year with Golden State. The Klay Thompson drama, everything that was around that. You kind of felt bad. It was bad vibes. And the Warriors, if anything, over this era, under Steve Kerr and Steph Curry and Draymond and all these guys, have been a good vibes team, right? The Kumbaya Warriors. Like, this is what we know them to be, and they just sort of got away from that identity last year. They're back to the good vibes this year. They're back to sort of Steph Curry after that Olympic run, manufacturing the night celebration and popping that off a couple of times during the season. That's always been good. But they're also playing like Golden State Warriors basketball. And it turns out that brand of basketball that was so refreshing and so new and so revolutionary when they were first doing it 10 years ago versus now, it's still refreshing and revolutionary and all these things. Nobody else in the league can pull it off quite the same way. The Boston Celtics do their own version of it with the 5-out offense, but they don't have the same ball movement, player movement stuff that Golden State has. It's still its own kind of thing, right? And like the Denver Nuggets with their ball movement and their passing, it's beautiful basketball also, but Steph Curry is a system unto himself. He's a brand of basketball. He's sort of just like an identity to himself. Like he just impacts the game in such a way, just aesthetically, that it has been a joy to watch them. And they've been quite good also. Defensively is where they're hanging their hat right now. They're top 10 in defensive rating. Over these last 5 games, they're third. They're in a little bit of a offensive rut here. They're 25th in the league over the last 5 games in offensive rating, but that should go up. D'Anthony Melton, that was a tough thing to lose right there. He's out for the season with an ACL injury, but they're also a team to watch when it comes to the trade market. It feels like they're going to make some kind of move. I don't know if it'll be the big, like, Lauri Markkanen, Paul George type of thing, but it feels like they'll do something, and that's exciting too. So Warriors have been an early season MVP on the league pass rankings for me. What about you?
No, I just want to say on the Warriors, I agree. A couple things I love about them. Number one, I think Kerr's doing a really good job of the 12-man rotations. I love that he's playing this team deep. Even a little harder now, obviously, with the Melton injury, which is a real bummer, but they're going to keep rolling that. And Curry playing at the level he is. I also like that they're keeping Curry's minutes low. I think that bodes well for the sustainability of this. I also love that some of his antics have been a little bit, I think, over the top. But when I feel better about what Draymond is going to give me for a full season when he's doing weird shit like doing stuff with, like, kind of poking his leg out at Zach Edey and then talking shit to Taylor Jenkins on his podcast. Like, I feel better that Draymond's in that headspace when, like, I feel better about what he's going to bring me when Draymond's just being peak asshole Draymond.
Well,
I say that lovingly.
He's earning the chatter at this point because he's been playing incredible basketball. Last year, he had some of the suspensions that derailed his season, all that stuff. He's been available. He's been out there. Defensively, he's been peak Draymond again, just like Steph has been peak Steph. And it's just really cool to watch that partnership kind of fuel this sort of new look, revamped supporting cast. It's still very much a Steph Curry and Draymond Green team. They've been a lot of fun, and I don't know that I still have my questions, and I use that word on purpose. It's not even doubts. It's just like a healthy amount of skepticism about what they can actually do in the Western Conference. Are they really a threat in the West? They don't really look like a championship team. They don't look the way a championship team tends to look. They also didn't look that way in 2022, where they had that number 2 scorer. And they kept Andrew Wiggins got hot. Klay Thompson had a good run. Jordan Poole had a Joe Flacco-like playoff run. And then that powered them to a championship. So who's to say that can't happen again? But I think the West is obviously much deeper than it was in 2022. There's a lot more challenges in front of them. That said, I don't care. I just have fun watching them. And they've been, when they're on League Pass, they're just one of those teams, especially out here on the East Coast, like where you're looking at those West Coast games, and a lot of times it's slim pickings. And when the Warriors are playing anybody, that's usually my first go-to on League Pass for those 10:30 starts.
It's an absolutely safe, dependable option in that case. There's no notes for me there. I thought about Houston for this because I've just really loved what they've done. It would have been a great pick, but we've talked with them a little bit, and I'm sure we will again in the future. So I'm going to go a little bit weird here. This is my weird pick. I thought about picking the Cavs. We've talked about them enough. Don't really want to do that again.
You're picking a lot of teams right now.
I'm picking the Brooklyn Nets, Wes, is what I'm about to do.
Oh, no.
Here's the thing. This is not going to last.
Big Trendon Watford guy?
Look, they're 20th in net rating, but that team plays hard. The offense is like borderline top 10. The defense isn't good, but I feel like what Jordi Fernandez is laying the foundation for the long run with this team, I'm buying in. I think Trent Watford, to your point, is like at least get the 4 games he's played. There's some minutes there that I've liked. I love the idea that like they just have an identity where like there's something starting here that I really like. Like they are not buying into the idea that they should just suck. They're actually running like a real offensive system. When you play them and you're getting attacked by that offense and the way that Jordy has come from all these great places and installed something here, it works. This is just like one of those teams that I know isn't going anywhere. By February, they will be awful and in the Cooper flag running West. But right now, they're one of those teams. And Portland's kind of like this as well, where like they're winning more games than they should. And I kind of just want to appreciate that while it lasts in the first 20 games, because this is not going to last. They're gonna suck in like a month. But like right now, they're running good stuff. They're fun. The energy is good. I can't ask for anything more.
The difference between Brooklyn and Portland is that Brooklyn's actually fun to watch, and Portland's not.
Donovan, they have like three centers.
Yeah,
does. And Donovan
I like Kamara.
Points.
Kamara's pretty good in Portland, but I can't sit here and say that I love watching most of those guys play basketball. And that's somebody who's rooting for Scoot Henderson. But back to your Brooklyn Nets point, I have also watched a fair amount of the Brooklyn Nets on League Pass. You just sort of find your way clicking onto them, and you're like, this game's kind of fun. They play these weird lineups. There's like a lot of Ben Simmons at center. Fernandez doing a good job of separating Ben Simmons and Nick Claxton as much as you can. The Cam Thomas roller coaster is certainly a ride to go on. They have a lot of pieces that I like. Like I'm a Claxton guy, obviously. Everybody likes Dorian Finney-Smith. It feels like he's going to finish the season on another team or ought to. And Cam Johnson has had a bounce back year after last year. It was a rough season for him. He's been really good for them. He's had like 30 points in a couple of these games. Like I make fun of the pick. It is definitely an NBA nerd pick. Nobody serious in real life is watching the Brooklyn Nets except for people that do stuff like this, like we do.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know what? They are missing out on some fun basketball, so I can't hate the pick. It's the right way to think about it during this holiday week. It's like, look, I knew I was going to watch. I came in with like the generic, like, hey, the Warriors have a star player like Steph Curry. I enjoy watching them. And you're like, cool take, Wes. Nothing unique there. But you were like, let me find a way to actually enjoy watching the dredges of the league.
That's
right. I at least found one in Brooklyn. So hats off to you.
Can I just give you some Cam Thomas stats real quick before we move on?
I mean, while we're here,
this is just like some shout out to Rome.
big week for Rome.
Big weekend for Rome. Wes, if you want to get a laugh, just look up what Ridley Scott how he's talked about the history of Rome and how he's interpreted it. It's just like the most like I'm in my 80s and don't give a shit energy of all time, and I think we all need a little bit in their life. He's just like, of course they flooded the Coliseum and had sharks in there. It's like, what? Really? No, they didn't. All right. Usage rate in the upper 3% of wings. It's above 30% usage rate. It's just awesome. Turning the ball over a fair amount. Okay. Has an 18.4 assist percentage, which would be the best of his career by over 3%. He's like finding little pass bits as a scorer here.
Was he averaging like 3 assists a game?
It's not a lot.
Yeah, okay.
What Cam Thomas is kind of doing is being like the best version of himself, which is just like kind of an empty calories, high usage junk scorer. But he's shooting nearly 40% from 3. He's taking more threes than he ever has per game. He's getting up about 18 shots a game. And he's there's just like little upticks here and there where you're just like, okay, he's 23.
I'm convinced,
there's still talent there. He's going to be good on a playoff team one year, and it's going to be hilarious.
As a sixth man, but I'm convinced that Cam Thomas looks at Anthony Edwards and says, why don't you talk about me like you talk about him?
Cam Thomas absolutely thinks he's better than Anthony Edwards, and
he's wondering where the shoe deal is.
He's wondering, why do I not have a Sprite commercial with Grant Hill? You know?
Right. Yeah, he's like, I'm in Brooklyn. That guy's in Minnesota. I'm in the big market. What gives? What's going on here?
Yeah.
He's just waiting. He's waiting. He's like, just wait until I'm in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then you'll all start talking to me like I'm the next face of the NBA. And you know what? Good for him. Good for him. Love the confidence. He's on the perfect team right now. I don't know where he actually what Cam Thomas's NBA future really is an open question. But for now, we could just sort of ride this ride all together.
He is absolutely next year, provided like he isn't traded or something. Let's say Cooper Flag ends up or Ace Bailey ends up on the Brooklyn Nets. There's going to be a game in like December where they like are trying to, hey, like we're really trying to get Cooper some lead reps on the ball late in a game, and Cam's like, I'm the motherfucking captain of the ship, and it's going to be awesome.
Right. I'll tell you when he can touch the ball. How about that?
Yeah, it's going to be like, have you ever seen the video of like Ricky Davis and Darius Miles and Carlos Boozer talking about LeBron coming to the Cavs. Have you ever seen this
Yes.
video?
yes.
That's going to be Cam Thomas, but he's everyone responding to it in that sense. Shout out to Cam Thomas. Love the Brooklyn Nets, who will be bad in about a month. All right, Wes, player you're thankful for.
So, all right. The real answer here is Dyson Daniels, but I feel like we just did a whole. Did we podcast about him already?
We did. We've snuck Dyson Daniels into like every show, but here's the thing: it's so deserved. Dyson Daniels is gonna. We are like a month away, Wes, from Dyson Daniels among like NBA nerds being too talked about too much. Like because the Dyson Daniels is awesome. Has gotten to a point where like if Zach Lowe was doing a little poster now, there would have been like 30 minutes on his pod about Dyson Daniels like interstitch over 2 episodes.
I'm still waiting for the big Dyson Daniels feature to come out, but I'll tell you what. I know some people in the Hawks front office, and they freaking love this guy. Like, they love this guy. I think he's better than anybody anticipated. And he's just a joy to watch. Like, he's coming for the crown of defensive player I most enjoy watching play defense. And Jalen Suggs currently has that crown. But Dyson Daniels is really coming for it. And there's a couple other guys in the league coming for it. Like Tari Eason's right there on that list. Amen Thompson's on that list too.
Oh, yeah.
Suggs still has the belt, but they're coming for the crowd, the belt, maybe both. I don't know. It's a whole uniform. But Dyson Daniels leads the league in deflections by a mile. He's averaging 6.8 deflections per game. The second place guy who qualifies, do you want to guess?
In deflections, is it going to be like...
Deflections per game.
Is it Jokic?
It is Jokic. It's Jokic at 4.2.
I just know he's. I know. Only reason I guessed him, Wes, is because when the peak of the Jokic defense wars were going on, his defenders would be like, he actually deflects a lot of passes. That was always one of the things.
So we all know how awesome the Oklahoma City guys are, right? Alex Caruso, Jalen Williams, Cason Wallace. If you take Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, like those guys, so if you take Lou Dort and Alex Caruso and you combine their deflections, you get one Dyson Daniels.
Yeah.
How's that for a stat?
Hell
so that's what this guy is doing. He is wreaking havoc. And my favorite thing about Dyson Daniels, I love this. Like when he's always defending the number one ball handler on the opposing team. And that ball handler will oftentimes, as you do in the NBA in 2024, get into a pick and roll. Mm-hmm. And as a ball handler, there's patterns. There's things that you get that pick, and if you hit that screen snug, right, where you're not there's no room between your center, your big man who's setting that screen, and you pretty much know that defender's gone. Like my guy's gone. There's no way. I hit that screen snug. There's no way for him to stay with me. I've got my runway to the basket. That guy's behind me. If you're Chris Paul, maybe you slow down, you put him on your hip, and you get him in jail, and you force a foul or whatever it is. That's sort of the natural patterns of playing pick and roll basketball as a ball handler. Well, Dyson Daniels takes those patterns and throws them all away because he's like 6'6", 6'7", but he's got the 7-foot wingspan, these incredibly long arms, and a ball handler will hit that screen snug, come around the corner, think that he's in the clear, ready to kind of go into his pick and roll and either score or kick out or whatever. And Dyson Daniels just sort of appears behind him and pokes the ball free from behind, just like pokes it. And you can literally see the ball handler's eyes go wide and surprise and just be like, whoa, where'd the ball go? He doesn't have it anymore. Dyson Daniels has it, and he's going the other way. So I've nicknamed this the Dyson Dash. That's sort of my nickname for it. And you could just see it happening. And I don't know when it gets on the scouting report to the point where everybody knows it's coming, but it's not quite there yet. So now we're still in that sweet spot where those opposing ball handlers are still caught by surprise by it. And I think it's sort of the most enjoyable defensive sequence that happens on a game-to-game basis in the league. And I even put it over just like the crazy shit that Wembanyama does every once in a while. Because this one, you just see it coming, where with the Wembanyama thing is just surprising. This, you just see it coming, and you know that the other guy doesn't.
He is absolutely great. He is the more than the picks, such a dent in the Pelicans who we talked about earlier. It's just like
They won the trade already.
They won the trade because they got Dyson Daniels. It's not even a question of what the picks become. It's like they got Dyson Daniels and got a guy who didn't fit with Trey. And even if I still don't quite believe in what the Hawks are as they exist right now, Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson is like enough for me to be excited. And if you're gonna
and Reza Shea looks good too
at some point,
shout out to the rookie.
He's coming along. Like, and if they have to pivot off Trey at some point, or they just make some moves around Trey, like they have flexibility now that they didn't. And Daniels is a really big part of that. Russ, this is my homer pick. I'm going Darius Garland for a player I'm thankful for because
great pick.
You could pick a bunch of Cavs, I think, for guys that epitomize what this team has been. I mean, you could really make a case, and like, if you wanted to get weird, just say, look at Ty Jerome and like what he's doing for them, and you could be like, that's your pick. You could pick Evan Mobley. Darius Garland and the joy and confidence he's playing with this year and the freedom he's playing with is everything for a guy that had, I thought, one of the most hellacious years last year, who was thrown in trade rumors, somewhat of his probably, I think, his agency's own making over the summer. But a guy that I've always thought the world of, and you're seeing what Kenny Atkinson and what some more freedom and what a more structured, disciplined style and ethos of offensive basketball can provide him. He is playing as creatively and loosely and openly to what is around him than we've ever seen him play. This is the guy that I thought we would get, Wes, after the All-Star team a couple years ago. This is the level I thought he was going to get to. It didn't happen in a straight line. It almost really never does, but he got there. Just the way he is taking pull-up threes, the way he is hitting these hezzies in the middle of the lane to get looks at the rim in a way he wasn't last year. The joy, I think, that comes off him when he plays. I think he epitomizes, maybe more than anyone else on this Cavs team, why this is a new group under Kenny Atkinson. It wasn't under Bickerstaff. It had kind of just run its course under Bickerstaff. I think last year just sucked for Garland. He just looks like a new player, looks like an all-star caliber player again. And he is really making, I think, everything hum more than people maybe note.
Yeah, I mean, the ways, the levers he's pulled, the buttons he's pressed, just like the way he's turned his dial into little directions to make it so that he fits with Donovan Mitchell have been awesome, right? Because this is a guy who was very much a lead ball handler and now still can tap into that, but is also playing off of Donovan Mitchell in a lot of these possessions too. And for the questions we had about their fit last year, and it just felt like, okay, do you have to trade one of these guys? They're both so talented, but how can you trade one of them? But also, how does it work? A lot of comparisons to Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in Portland. Like, yep, they were talented, but they just had a ceiling. And Portland obviously would have been better off probably trading McCollum earlier than they did, and they wasted an opportunity there. To the point now where, I don't know, you could argue that Mitchell and Garland are sort of the model of how to build a backcourt with two smaller-sized-ish guards. And I think when you look at maybe what Philadelphia is building with Maxey and Jerry McCain, is maybe they look at Cleveland as the model. This is how we can make it work. Because the difference between Lillard and McCollum and Mitchell and Garland is that Mitchell actually has impressive physical tools. Like, he's got a long wingspan. He's really strong. McCollum and Lillard, neither of those guys could claim that, right? And so they were smaller, but they were also, they didn't have any physical tools that were impressive. Mitchell can tap into something. And I think Maxey in Philadelphia, for the record, is sort of similar, where he's got like that 6'9" wingspan too, and he can kind of become that guy. He hasn't necessarily shown it, but I think he's got the ability to do it. So again, those questions have been very much mitigated, and I think Darius Garland gets so much of that credit now where they look like the backcourt of the future for Cleveland. Like, there are no those questions about, hey, do they have to trade one of these guys? Like, nobody's asking that stuff anymore. And it's partly obviously because they're winning so many games, but also because they're winning games because of those guys, because those fit concerns have basically washed away within a calendar year. They're gone. Like, they play so well off of each other. And that's really cool to watch too, is two guys playing the same position, figuring out ways to coexist. You don't see that very much, but they've done it. And they've done it at a relatively young spot in their careers too. Like, they haven't really, like, I know they're all-stars and stuff like that, but neither of them have accomplished like a ton in the NBA. So for them to sort of buy in and sort of quote-unquote sacrifice for the betterment of the team, now you see both of them sort of taking off and the whole team taking off. So it's a great story, and it was a great pick.
Yeah, Garland is 24. I think, Wes, I'm guilty of this. I think we're all guilty of this. We just kind of think of guys what they just were. And I think particularly before guys hit like 27, there's a lot of malleability. These guys come into the league so young. They can change really rapidly. Things can flip on a dime for them. There's a point where, maybe this is, I think there's a point where maybe more evidence stacks up against them or for them in a certain way. Zion, I feel like we have enough. Garland, it was like I felt there was so much more in the positive for him than the not. And you look at what he's doing this year. He's shooting the best within 4 feet he ever has. He's driving to the basket 15 times a game. That fearlessness is back. And he's one of the stretchiest 28 and out 3-point shooters we actually have from the guard spot. Like, this is yes, is he a little bit small? Sure. But in terms of his offensive package, it is one of the best templates you could have for a modern point guard. I have loved his season. I think you're right, the shout out to him and Mitchell thing. For I don't know, we don't really know, I think, Wes, how this was 5 years ago. We would have got a Lee Jenkins or a Chris Ballard feature on like how they broke bread and figured out how to make this work. However, they figured this out and checked ego and like put however this is going to work together. It's one of the more important developments, I think, for the Cavs of anything else. Like that, none of this is happening unless Garland becomes this guy and they're willing to work together in that function.
Yeah, and I've talked about this with you before, but so many things get, like all those fit concerns, so much of it gets neutralized by just driving and kicking. Like if you're able to just get to the basket and kick out to an open shooter, I don't care if that shooter plays your same position. If that guy can hit that open shot and you're able to get to the basket and create some sort of advantage for your offense, a lot of those fit concerns sort of wash away. And defensively, yeah, there's going to be times where Mitchell and Garland are targeted. I think they've worked really hard on that end, but there's still going to be inherent limitations there. But it really helps when you've got Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen behind you and Isaac Okoro's who had a nice season for them. Like it helps when he's been available. It helps when those guys are back there too. So the roster is constructed like weirdly really well all of a sudden. So yeah, hats off to all those guys.
All right, storyline we're thankful for. I'll just go first because we've talked about this one a bunch, Wes. But I'm just thankful that we've got two teams in the East that are dysfunctional, and that's the whatever is going to go on all year with the Bucks and the Sixers. I'm just glad we have it.
Hey, like, the Bucks won 4 in a row.
There's something getting figured out there. I don't know how real it is. We'll see where it's going. But like the fact that we have two guys like named players on teams that have just been utter like. Just testing everyone's patience and belief in what they are. I'm there, and the Philly thing in particular is just the more I've thought about it, I listened to Bill Simmons talk about it with Chris Ryan the other day on the Simmons pod, and like was just like listening to everything I can about this because I cannot think of a more like overwhelmingly messy NBA story in some time. It is like really since like Draymond punched Jordan Poole in the face that I feel like I've had an NBA story that felt as dramatic from every single angle. Like there's nothing normal going on there. And I'm to the point where they might just be better shutting down Embiid for 6 weeks. Like there's just something like they might just be better letting him go and try to get as healthy as he can for 6 weeks.
It's the primetime soap opera in the NBA, right? Like what happens on the court is it doesn't matter. It's the drama that keeps giving. It feels like every week there's something new coming out of Philadelphia. The way that fan base reacts so strongly to everything that happens also kind of creates this sort of chasm in this echo chamber that's just kind of interesting to watch. It's almost like a zoo animal where you're just this is going to get interesting.
This is no disrespect to the Clippers are probably the most apt comparison, and no disrespect to I know there are like real hardcore Clippers fans, but like the Kawhi thing got like messy because it was Kawhi. But it didn't really get there wasn't a lot of heat from the fan base, and there wasn't like things happening on that team. Like there was not a single podcast P episode reacting to a leak story about Kawhi. There's already been one about Embiid and his leadership and being late to meetings. Like we've already crossed a level that never happened with the Clippers because of I think it's in part because of that fan base blowing everything up.
So I appreciate you basking in the drama and the soap opera of it all. I'm sort of bummed out by it all because we have two of the best players in the league.
It's
toiling on. Yeah. We got Embiid, and then we've got Giannis kind of on this 500 team. We'll see what happens in Milwaukee there. But I'm like, shouldn't the best players be playing on the best teams? Like, isn't that sort of what this league is all about? And it certainly doesn't feel like that's the case. The storyline that I'm grateful for is Adam Silver basically admitting that expansion is happening. I'm here for it. I love expansion. To me, I don't know why I get so excited about it, but I think we're ready. I think we're ready for a couple more teams. I think there's enough talent. The European influence on and the African influence on the league is so great that we've never had as much talent as we do now. we've got guys that are out of the league who you didn't think they would be out of the league. Like, we're literally at a need for 2 more rosters because there's just so much talent right now. And I think it's going to be great for the NBA. There's already talk, too, of when those 2 teams come in and that we expand to 32 teams, that we might eliminate conferences altogether and just go to the best 16 teams. I think that would be wonderful
for
the league.
I understand the travel issues and all of that.
You could figure it out with divisions. We could still have divisions where you are traveling within a geographic area.
Make divisions matter, you mean? Like the divisions would actually
just for schedule purposes, for sure. Yeah, I think that would be amazing.
And Wes, to your point, it's and the travel thing, you figure it out. We have enough. I'm sure there are enough very, very smart people, both employed by the NBA and that they could get as consultants for this out, and AI. There's enough tools that they could just go figure out how to not. Certainly some teams will have a worse burden on it. If you're the Kings, and traveling to have an Eastmore would suck for you. But I think they could probably find a way to figure it out and make it manageable, and we get an actual open NBA that I think would be good.
I think my favorite secret storyline is if we don't eliminate the conferences, because I'm not sure we're going to get there. Tim Bontemps wrote about this recently for ESPN, and it was a great point. You have to get 75% of the league to agree on a major change like that. And for a bunch of Eastern Conference teams, for basically half the Eastern Conference to say, yeah, let's eliminate conferences, would be voting against their own self-interest, right? Because you get more money when you make the playoffs and things like that. So I still am a little dubious we'll ever not go to conferences. But on the good part about that is now, and it's starting already, and you can argue it's already started over the last few years, one of Minnesota, New Orleans, and Memphis is going to get to go to the Eastern Conference, because we're going to get a Seattle team and we're going to get a Vegas team. And both of those teams go to the Western Conference, which means one team has to leave the West and go to the Eastern Conference.
Well, no, wouldn't it be 2 teams? It'd be 2 teams.
Are you
You're
sure?
You're adding 2 teams to the West. Oh, no, you're right. It'd be right. It'd just be one of them.
It'd be 16 teams in each conference.
You're right.
So one of Minnesota, New Orleans, and Memphis gets to go to their right conference, because these are Eastern Conference teams playing in the Western Conference, and we're gonna have a battle, right? And so my pick right now is Minnesota, because they have Anthony Edwards. But if it's 2 years from now, who knows? The NBA can change a lot. Minnesota's just sort of middling right now. Are we sure that wasn't the best team that Anthony Edwards has ever played on in Minnesota? If that's going to be the best team, they traded Karl-Anthony Towns. The Julius Randle thing hasn't been a good fit. I'm not trying to cause anything here, but it just makes it that much more important for Minnesota to hang on to Anthony Edwards, because if he's part of that franchise and on a long-term contract, not just hang on to him, sign him to a huge long-term Supermax contract again after this one that he already signed, that could potentially make it so that Minnesota is the team that ends up in the Eastern Conference. Because if it's not them, I don't think it'll be New Orleans. It's too small of a market, and I don't think anybody cares. Memphis, they have Ja Morant, another star. I don't know. They've had a lot of success over the years. They could certainly fit in the Eastern Conference. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, this little quiet battle happening between those 3 teams. Who's going to be the one that gets picked?
I'm Googling right now. Is Memphis or Minnesota closer to the Atlantic Ocean?
Memphis, dude.
I'm just checking, man.
Come on. But Minnesota's right there with Milwaukee, Chicago.
Yeah.
It's there with all those teams. It makes sense to be in a division with them.
Minnesota feels Midwest in a way that Memphis feels more Southern, which I don't really know what to do with that.
Yeah, but Chicago's in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, Chicago's very. I mean, Chicago. Yeah, unless we're gonna create a middle, which you're not gonna do. Yeah, I can't wait for expansion. The lottery, the protecting of teams in the apron era is going to be so fascinating. Fun. It's going to be fascinating analysis. All right, Wes, let's get out of here.
Yep.
Thanksgiving food. Just give me your top 5.
Oh, just the top 5 ranking. Wow, you didn't even prep me for this.
No, it's fine. I didn't prep myself either.
Okay,
I decided right now.
Main dishes and side dishes and desserts, or are we just doing side dishes? What are we doing?
Let's do it this way. Let's just build your plate. Let's build what's on your plate.
Okay, so you start with the turkey. I like a big piece of white meat. I'm not really a dark meat turkey guy, so you can miss me with the leg. I don't really care about the drumstick. I don't need all that. Give me a big slice of white meat with some skin. That's what I need. And then we typically do ham also in addition to the turkey. I don't know how common that is. So I'll do a little bit of ham. I'll do a little bit of turkey. Boom, got that. And then the King's Hawaiian roll. I have to have a King's Hawaiian roll. And then we're making a sandwich basically right away. Like I'm not waiting for leftovers. I'm doing it right away. I've got the King Hawaiian roll sandwiches. I've got all that. I've got the mashed potatoes. I've got the cranberry sauce. And I have way more stuffing than I need. But I love stuffing. It's the only time of the year. If you eat, here's my take on stuffing. If you eat stuffing in July, you look like an insane person.
That's right. You do.
You only get to have it one day and then the following, like for 3 days. Like even if you have stuffing in December, you look a little insane. Like you're like,
it feels.
How old are those leftovers? Like
it's like, dude, yeah.
So you got to get as much of it as you can.
I worked at a grocery store in high school and college, Wes, and there was a guy that would buy stuffing like all year round because he would make like I ended up talking to him about it because he was like I did like personal shopping and he would.
It is a conversation starter.
And I was like, so stuffing, it's like August, my guy, and he was like, yeah, I make a turkey dinner like twice a month, like the full.
Good for him. Dude knows what he likes.
Yeah.
Does he live alone?
Like, it was like first family. It was like him and he was like in his 60s. Him and his wife just like really like turkey dinner. Like
good for them.
Like,
yeah, that's retirement.
Or would make a nice roast. Like he'd also get like a big like beef roast kind
of
thing.
Love a roast.
With some stuffing. Yeah.
Love a roast.
But it was like August. So
that's my dish, and then I want
degrees, and he's eating stuffing. It was just like this. I can't imagine that like what are we doing? You know, like that's a little tough.
Yeah. Send your kid to school like in April with like stuffing. Like what? Finishing off my plate, I need some greens. So if I can get some collard greens, that's great. Green bean casserole, something like that. I generally skip the corn. I'm not a big corn guy. I think it's the most overrated food. I don't get it.
Okay.
It's fine. I like a corn casserole. I've made that before. That's okay. I'll get a little bit of that. But yeah, that's my plate. And some gravy. Obviously, gravy on top of the turkey and the mashed potatoes.
Okay, I was gonna say I didn't hear you say mashed potatoes, so I just want to make sure. My plate is very much similar. We do the ham as well. I'm not the biggest ham guy. Give me turkey. I like a little dark meat.
Okay, so you do go dark meat. Do you go dark and white?
I go dark and white. Yeah.
Okay.
Give me both. My dad. Thanksgiving is also always at my parents' house, so I will go and like help cook. And my dad, when he's like doing the turkey, most of my family is weird and complains about like dark meat. So my dad and I just like start like nibbling little pieces of dark meat, like as we're like when it's just like perfect. It's great. King's Hawaiian roll is a must. I mean, it's just the sweetness to cut through everything else is just kind of necessary. My dad makes stuffing. To me, it's stuffing, and my dad makes these stuffing cakes, which he like basically puts stuffing in a muffin tin and like bakes them. And they're crack. It's hard, crispy on the outside, soft the inside. Some of them have cranberry. Some of them have cranberry and sausage, or some of them are just plain. Guess.
I have to steal that.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get the recipe. He's never let me get the recipe either, which is just tough.
Tell him I want it.
I will. I'll be like, he does. My dad. You know, here's the thing. He watches our show and listens to it on YouTube. Wes has listened to every episode. He will absolutely text me about this. 100%. He's going to text me about this. The one thing I think you're missing is the mac and cheese.
I did forget that. That was an oversight. There's mac and cheese on my plate. 100%. Yep, that was an oversight.
The mac and cheese.
We got a little distracted.
Yeah, look, we were still talking about turkey and stuffing in August.
Yeah. Mac
and cheese, and a thing I have done a couple times is the last couple of years, and I'm sure this is common elsewhere, but it's just like my family, not normally their thing. I've started a little like just basic hot sauce on the mac and cheese, just to give myself like a little. Just to
kick it up.
I'm okay with else is so savory and heavy, and I just need like a little bit, to just keep the palate fresh, you know.
Yep.
What's your drink of choice on Thanksgiving? Are you a wine guy, a cocktail guy? What do we do?
Yes. But I
just booze.
I love it's the one time a year, and this is not a unique take in the wine business, but this will be the one time of the year where I will actually go and find a nice Beaujolais. It's a French wine. It pairs perfectly with turkey. It is everywhere at every liquor store. Everybody knows you got to sell Beaujolais around Thanksgiving, and that would be my one recommendation. If you could find it, find it. And it's not that expensive. It doesn't have to be. You can usually find a bottle for like $13, and you could find something that's really nice at like $20. I'll usually kind of go there and find something nice. And then I'll usually pick up, and I'm not a big Pinot Noir guy, but again, on Thanksgiving, it just tends to pair well with all of that stuff. And so I'll usually go find a nice Pinot Noir as well. But Well, we can have a separate Pinot Noir conversation. But I'm a big wine guy, and so Thanksgiving is perfect. I get a Beaujolais, a Pinot Noir. I prefer something from Oregon on the Pinot Noir. The Beaujolais obviously is French, and then I bring those 2 bottles. What about you?
Yeah, little red wine, or I'll do like some kind of like vodka tonic, vodka soda, just kind of simple cleanse. And then after, it's give me a this is a last year thing that is now just an every year thing. After dinner, cup of coffee.
Yep.
And then with a bourbon on the rocks on this, like
you
having
go.
them at the same time, and
Yep.
just have my pie, have my coffee, have my bourbon, and then I just feel like I don't need to eat for 6 days.
What's your go-to pie? You get one slice. You don't get to chew. You don't get to do a variety. You get apple.
Apple. It's not even a question.
I go pecan pie for me.
I-
But in Miami, so we bring our dish. My wife and I have decided that we're not going to cook. Well, we haven't decided so much as our family has decided that we're not going to cook. But we brought over one time. There's a place in South Beach on 5th called Joe's. And it's a world famous seafood restaurant. Been there forever. And they do a world famous key lime pie. It's the best key lime pie you'll ever have. And we order it the night before Thanksgiving. We go, we have a drink at the bar, pick up our pies, and we head on our way. And we get enough for both families. And so that's what we bring over. So it's very Miami, but we get a slice of key lime pie, a cup of coffee, and then I'll probably join you on that bourbon afterwards too.
That sounds A+. I have no notes on the key lime pie. Key lime pie underrated. Key lime
Super
pie.
underrated. Could also go terribly wrong if not made the right way.
Yes.
It could be awful, way too sour. The texture could be all off because with the citrus, you end up it kind of can get like melty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to hit it right, and it really should almost be like ice cream on the inside. That's the texture that it should be, and so much it can go wrong so badly and so often. But Joe's they hit it out of the park every time.
Adding it to my list for when I eventually get done to Miami. But that's the Just Basketball show for this week. We'll be back next week at the start of December. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone. Enjoy the hoops, and we'll talk to you next week.